The Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
I fucking love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole.
There are a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
Oh, I love just sitting in this seat. I got Ken Flo for 90 minutes or more. If you want Ken Flo for 90 minutes or so, you just got to convince him to start a podcast, which I did like 7 years ago. It's great to be here with you guys. I got to stop saying it's like the most anticipated episode in the history of the program, right after these amazing UFC fight nights, because this is not the most anticipated episode in the now 327 episode history of the Anik and Florian podcast, but it's pretty damn close. Monday, December 6th, 2021. Happy birthday to my niece, Paris. Good to see you, Ken Flo. What's going on?
How you doing, man? Great weekend of fights. We have more to come. Just crazy, man. It's been a pretty crazy schedule. And you're back home, huh?
Came back home. I have some childcare to attend to in the next few days. People get very upset when I call my own children any form of taking care of them, childcare or babysitting. But it is what it is. But yeah, no, I came home for a few days. And when I'm sitting there calling a UFC fight night like this, and granted it's in the Apex, right? So there aren't fans. There are some, but not enough fans to drown out the visceral nature of these strikes, the audio of these strikes.
Right.
And I'm sitting here thinking, man, if people are just watching this on ESPN, maybe tuning in for the first time, this card is just sensational. And the amount of heat that was being thrown and how heavy the strikes were, generally speaking, on both sides of all these matchups. I feel like it was one of the loudest nights in UFC history, if I can put it that way.
Some of these things, and obviously, yeah, the location helps, right? Because it's an intimate place. You're right there. But, that's the value of going to a live mixed martial arts fight. It's unlike anything else. You're seeing the impacts. You're feeling it. It makes it that much more visceral. It's a must for any MMA fan for sure.
All right, so coming up today, we'll recap everything that was UFC Fight Night, Font versus Aldo. We'll try to highlight as many performances as humanly possible. On the backside of the show at the very end, I'm talking about Khamzat Chimaev. What of it? We're going to talk about Dana White's quotes, not just on the Jim Rome show, but also to TMZ about Khamzat Chimaev, who should have an opponent in the next few days. Also, time permitting, we'll talk about Tyron Woodley stepping into the now rematch with Jake Paul. But there's so much UFC stuff to get to beforehand that I'm not sure we're going to get to either one of those subjects. Especially if my ass wants to talk about Jose Aldo on the Mount Rushmore of MMA, which I know Ken Flo doesn't necessarily have time for today. But let us talk about the performance of one Jose Aldo over Rob Font by unanimous decision, 50-45 times 2, dissenting judge 49-46. Ken Flo's loss to Jose Aldo in 2011 just continues to grace beautifully. What else can you say, man, about the King of Rio?
Listen, if you are not technically sound, tough as nails, and capable of going a hard 25 minutes, you're not going to beat a Jose Aldo. He's just too good. You have to get through the skill barrier. You have to get through that mental toughness barrier. You have to get through that experience barrier. You have to be at a level of conditioning that is just out of this world. There's so many layers that this guy has. And he kind of is becoming like a fine wine. He's not old by any means, but he's been around the game for so long and he's been fighting at such a high level. He is absolutely one of the best fighters to ever do it. It was great to see those leg kicks come back, but man, what else? What else you got? I don't want to get into it.
I have a ton of questions. Of questions. Why do you think it took him so long to get to the leg kick? Obviously, it was Andre Pederneiras that called for it. He went to it right away, and it worked. Why do you think he waited?
Geez, it's tough. Obviously, there was that leg injury that he suffered way back when, several years ago, when he had a moped accident in Rio. Some people maybe think that was the case. Maybe I think he's been training a lot of boxing, right? And no matter how effective you had a weapon, if you had a weapon, and it was working really well, and you're working on something else, it doesn't matter that you did it at a certain point. If you're no longer training it, you lose it.
Yeah.
Right. It's just one of those things in mixed martial arts and martial arts. It's happened to me many times with my injuries up and down. If I'm not training it consistently, I forget about it. My body, my mind, whatever it is. And I think because he's been focusing so much on that boxing, he kind of has let that go by the wayside for whatever reason. Perhaps that's one of the reasons. But my goodness, I mean, he's just so much more dangerous when those leg kicks are in play. I say this all the time. But, I used to credit my eyes as one of the better things of my game. I could see things coming. I could move. I could evade. I could time certain things. He is one of the few guys that would throw something, and I just could not see it as well as other guys. Like, he was so damn fast, John, and so effective. And his timing is so good. It doesn't matter if you know he's going to leg kick you. He's going to leg kick you because he's just that fast. It really was blindingly fast.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And Font said for one reason or another, probably myriad reasons, he couldn't see some of those shots coming. Oftentimes I say it's the last article or video that I ingest before I go to the arena that ends up being the most useful in my commentary. And I read some comments from Pedro Munoz, who we'll talk about later today because he fights Dominic Cruz this weekend. But he talked about his fight with Jose Aldo, and that was the last fight for Jose. And he talked about the size and the strength. Jose Aldo is a former two-time UFC featherweight champion coming down. A lot of people thought if he was going to pursue a belt in another weight class, it would be at 55. So I'm thinking about that as I'm going to the arena, and obviously that was a huge factor for Rob Font, who, while not as credentialed a grappler as Jose Aldo, couldn't do anything with him on the ground over 7 or so minutes.
He's a massive 135-pounder. He used to have trouble cutting down to 145 pounds. I remember it well. I remember suffering through my weight cuts, also thinking, hey, he's suffering something similar to what I was experiencing.
I have to say, though.
Yeah.
It's such a different suffering, right? Like these bantamweight cuts are easier for him than the featherweight ones, right? Like
it seems like it. It's weird.
Yeah, like you're suffering. I mean, what was your body fat? I don't even want to know what your body.
I think at 168 pounds, I was 9% body fat at 168. So, but anyways, yeah, he was so damn strong, John. That was the other thing. At 145 pounds, when I locked up with him, and again, I don't know if this was attributed to my weight cut or my energy levels or whatever, which were brutal, but when I felt him, when I'd lock up with him, he had this like tension and this strength and this speed that was unlike a lot of other people. And again, I'd fought as high as 185 pounds. I had sparred with guys 185 pounds, but Jose Aldo's strength, his speed, was really unlike a lot of people. Had to be top 3 strongest guys that I had fought or locked up with for sure. So imagine bringing that to 135 pounds, and Rob Font being on the thinner side of 135. That was another reason when I looked at that, I said, geez, that's going to be a tough mountain for him to climb.
He invested in the body early, did Jose Aldo. And although I didn't think the whole time I was necessarily watching a 50-45 type fight, certainly it was dominant and Aldo was incredible. And I think it's time for me to ask this guy for a photograph, Kenny. I mean, I had so many opportunities.
You haven't done that yet?
Well, I don't do that, generally speaking. I mean, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, I think I had the courage in a bar in China because it was an intimate setting and I had a few cocktails to ask her. But generally speaking, I don't ask fighters for photographs. I'm going to ask Jose Aldo for a photo next time I see him. But an incredible performance, and divisionally speaking, it's huge because Aljamain Sterling is on the mend, and all indications are, and I sort of joke with Aljo in the bathroom right before the fight because he was there. I ended up seeing him in the bathroom right before that fight. I said, I guess if you're on Team Sterling, you're just hoping these guys beat the ever-living tar out of each other some way or another, and that's exactly what happened. But divisionally speaking, Aljamain Sterling needs to be healthy in order to unify these belts with Petr Yan. And if that doesn't happen in relatively short order, maybe they strip Aljamain Sterling and Petr Yan becomes undisputed. Either way, Corey Sandhagen's off a loss. TJ Dillashaw's off a win, but is wicked injured. I know Jose Aldo called for the Dillashaw fight. This is twice as hard for Rob Font to swallow, I think, because divisionally speaking, he wins here. He's probably getting a title fight. And I think Jose Aldo might just get a title fight here after this win this weekend.
He just might. There's a lot to unpack there with what you just said. I think that he matches up, and Jose Aldo matches up very well against Aljamain Sterling, in my opinion, perhaps better than anybody else out there. I don't know if he matches up so well against Petr Yan. Obviously, we saw that fight before. I do think he'd be a little bit smarter heading into that fight, but the type of tenacity, ferocity, pace and conditioning that Petr Yan brings to the table with his striking and his ability to hit takedowns. That would be fascinating to watch. I would absolutely be down for that rematch, but I'm not sure I'm so sold on that last performance by Aldo to say he could beat Petr Yan at this point, just because there were a couple times, and here's me being super critical, and Aldo is absolutely elite Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
But I would have liked to see him a little bit busier on the ground. He threw, it's like Rob Font was throwing maybe 10 times the amount of strikes that Aldo was throwing on the ground, and Aldo was on top. So I would have liked to seen him a little busier, perhaps going forward a little bit more on the ground, but positionally he was dominant. No question about that. And also it's a testament to Rob Font and the improvements that he's made on the ground. But I would have liked to seen a little bit more aggressive Jose Aldo when they did hit the mat as far as strikes and making Rob pay there. But still, this is a Jose Aldo that is something else. And, absolutely elite. I mean, I like the way he matches up against Dillashaw. I like the way he matches up even against Sandhagen with all his tools.
Yeah.
So, no shortage of fights. 135-pound division, dude, is just ridiculous. 145 and 135. You look at the improvements that division has made, the quality of fighters in those two divisions from the last 5 years or 10 years, it's insane.
Yeah, no, you hit on a lot of things there. I think Aldo Sandhagen actually makes a lot of sense, right? But it seems counterintuitive when Jose Aldo talks so much about wanting to fight for the belt and sort of check that box, and yet seems to want these big, difficult 5-round main events. I think maybe because he got the title fight against Petr Yan off a loss, even though a lot of us felt like he beat Marlon Moraes, that maybe he really wants to solidify himself as the number one contender. He knows there are two champions right now. I thought he moved his feet better against Pedro Munoz, though, than he did this night even. I think fatigue was a factor for Jose Aldo this night, and I do think against Sandhagen and certainly against Petr Yan, he's going to have to move a little bit better laterally than he did this night. But that's about as analytical as I'm willing to go. Real quickly, on Rob Font. I know this is really hard for him because he feels like he has all the skills to beat Jose Aldo. I thought he got off to a relatively good start. I thought his corner work was good. Anything for us on the Rob Font side before I talk one more time about Aldo big picture?
Listen, I thought Rob Font had a tremendous performance, which was why it was so impressive that Jose Aldo went out there and still got the win in the manner that he did. Rob Font was doing everything you're supposed to do against Aldo. He was pressuring him. He was attacking the body. He was trying to weaken him. He was, mixing things up on the ground. He was staying aggressive. He kept a good pace. It just wasn't enough. And I think this is where Rob is going to improve yet again from an experience like this. He will elevate his style and his game. That's what he's done throughout his career. And I expect a tougher, better Rob Font in the future, because when you face elite fighters like Jose Aldo, it rubs off on you. You learn. And Rob Font is a tremendous martial artist who will get better from this.
And I do think you can argue that his championship window doesn't really close all that much, right? He's 34 years old for Font, right? But he's still one big win away from being back in relevance. And I think if he gets that win over a Sandhagen type, for example, and I know that's asking a lot, then when you get some distance from this Jose Aldo resultant fight, it's like, all right, there are some positives there. He did go 25 minutes and challenge Jose Aldo. So again, for our region, New England, couldn't be happier having a guy like Rob Font represent us. And I'm really happy for that team, and hopefully he's not too banged up health wise. A lot of reasons to go back to Brazil right now. I'm told the earliest we could get back to Brazil is May, but with Glover Teixeira obviously as UFC light heavyweight champion and Jose Aldo as relevant as ever, maybe it's Rio, maybe it's May. We shall see. I'm not asking you to give me your Mount Rushmore of MMA, right? But it is interesting when you talk about where Jose Aldo was in 2015 going into the Conor McGregor fight. He had won 18 fights in a row. He loses that fight, and there have been losses since, right? I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's close to 500 even since that Conor McGregor fight, But in the time that has elapsed since that Conor McGregor defeat in 13 seconds, Jose Aldo has sustained and built his legacy and added to it so much so that when you talk about the 5 greatest mixed martial arts athletes of all time, let's just say 5, right? You're certainly not having the conversation without Jose Aldo. And when you look at all the big wins and all the signature wins when compared to, say, Conor McGregor's resume, it is absolutely incredible what Jose Aldo has accomplished.
John, in this sport, it is so difficult to even fight for the belt. It's even more difficult to win the belt. It's even more difficult yet still to defend that belt. Why? Because everyone is getting a crack at trying to unlock that code. And every time that happens, people have an opportunity to learn from it, adjust, right, and gather that intel and put it on their side. The fact that Jose Aldo was undefeated for so long at 145 pounds is just remarkable. And then when you look at, what is greatest of all time, you look at the fact that he's been elite in 2 different divisions. You look at the fact that there is no real weakness. I mean, like, he gives wrestlers, guys with high-level credentials, fits when they're trying to take him down. He could strike with the best wrestlers in the world. He could out jiu-jitsu you if he needs to. There's so many different layers to his game. His defensive capabilities, and how he pivots and how he blocks calf kicks and how he avoids all those different things. He really is a master. When Jose Aldo is at his best, I mean, I'm telling you, it's one of the prettiest things to see. He really is a master. I do not call many people. There are a lot of great champions, a lot of great fighters out there. There are very few masters. I believe Jose Aldo to be one of them.
7 title defenses during his first reign, which began in 2010. And one of the early ones, if not his second title defense, was against you, Ken Flo. We really have to move on, but real quick, you weren't like super beat up after those 25 minutes. What was the sorest, though? I mean, when you guys fought, what was the leg? Yeah.
The leg. Like, as soon as the fight was over, I went to it was like all of a sudden, like, I felt everything. Like, I went to step. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Those are good leg kicks. And then I couldn't feel my leg for like 6 months. But other than that, he is just very impressive, man. And again, I think he's a way better fighter than when I fought him. He's so much more experienced, so much more confident.
Next time we have Jose Aldo on the program, I'll ask him what was most sore the day after he fought Ken Flo. That fateful night, October 2011. All right. Speaking of the nuances, right, and the little subtle defensive things you talk about with Jose Aldo, go back and watch. Well, I'm not telling you this, but I would kindly suggest to our audience to go back and watch Rafael Fiziv's knockout of Brad Riddell, because this spinning wheel kick, obviously aesthetically, was a thing of beauty, but watch sort of the little nuances in the footwork and the way he sets it up, right? Like, I don't even know what I'm watching, and I can see that. I mean, pretty incredible striker. And now that he has his feet under him, so to speak, in the octagon, he's talked a lot about this cage being different than other MMA settings. I think he could be a future champion. You just never know.
John, you're doing your homework. I love to hear it. These are the invisible things that people don't quite appreciate. We all see the knockout strikes and the power and the speed, right? That is clear for most people to see. But it's the adjustments. It's your body position in relation to your opponents that allow you to hit when you need to hit them. It's your balance. Something as simple as, keeping your feet underneath you. Something as simple as breathing. These are all things that you don't really see and appreciate until you go out and do it, and you're completely off balance and your timing's horrible. Fiziv has those little things. He does the invisible things, all the little fundamental things that people talk about. He does extremely well. He doesn't throw himself out of position. And my goodness, what a beautiful strike to end that fight. And I think his consistency and his confidence and his comfort level in the octagon at this stage of his career is really impressive as well. He went against a dangerous striker in Brad Riddell. But to me, it was Riddell who seemed way tighter, and he just seemed to get tighter as the fight went on. Fiziv seemed to loosen up as the fight went on. And I think that was kind of the story of the fight for me.
Dean Thomas talked about that, and I know some people were dismissive of that commentary, so it's interesting to hear you align with it. And all the judges saw this fight 2-0 for Rafael Fiziv. And I do think there is something to be said for that, even though my counter to Dean in my head, even though I didn't get it out on broadcast at the time, was that I feel like I see some of that in Riddell even when he's winning fights. So I didn't want to lean too heavily into it, but it's interesting for me to hear you say that nonetheless. I feel like this was one of the most fascinating fights that I've ever called, just given the friendship, right? And I felt like Riddell was doing a lot of nuanced things, right, to try to attack the body and things, that I really can't speak to specifically. But I just thought it was a fascinating fight to call. And, I wouldn't be surprised to see these guys fight each other again. What are your big picture thoughts on Rafael Fiziv after this win? It's 5 in a row since dropping his UFC debut.
I think this was a fight that proved a lot to me. I think he had to deal with a lot, right? I mean, having Brad Riddell as your mentor or instructor and having to go out there and fight that guy who is a friend, a guy you've hung out with outside of training, it's not an easy thing for a lot of people to do. Go out there and hurt them and be able to look past them. And, I think for Zeev, this is going to be a big moment that he'll look back on in his career and say, this made me mentally tougher. This gave me experience. This gave me confidence to keep doing what I'm doing and to kind of strengthen that faith in his training. Fiziv's something else, man. He really is a special fighter. And I still think he has things to show us. For example, like what happens when he goes against, a high-level takedown artist and things like that. I think he has shown it to hold up so far pretty well. But yeah. I think this is a huge step in his development, and I think he's only going to get better from here on out. I want to see more of this kid. He's a phenomenal striker.
Yeah, I think you put that well. And I feel like for Riddell, too, this is hugely valuable experience. Just like for Kamaru Usman fighting Gilbert Burns, I think there was so much to extract from that win. And there aren't going to be many more difficult fights emotionally than the one Brad Riddell just experienced. And knowing Riddell, he'll demand that Gillespie fight again. Just one of the toughest customers on the roster. And Brad Riddell will forever have a fan in me. But Fiziv's obviously the guy that's moving on up likely to the top 10 or 11 or so in the world at 155 pounds. Excuse me. All right. Jamal Hill was an underdog going into this Jimmy Crute fight. I believe he says, however humbly, that he is the best boxer in the UFC. And I said on the broadcast, there is definitely a humble man despite the obvious confidence and self-belief of Jamal Hill. Definitely a humble man inside there. And it's going to take some humility to bounce back from the Paul Craig result the way he did. And he's got that, break your face open throwback type power, obviously technical skills, right? But we talk about Derek Lewis, breaking your face open. Didn't take very long for Jamal Hill to break a bunch of fucking bones in Jimmy Crute's face, did it, right? Some guys hit you and they break your face. Jamal Hill's one of them.
If there was one word that comes to mind every time I see Jamal, especially when he's at his best, it's sweet. Like the dude is just nice with his technique. Like, okay, so let's contrast this to Riddell, who I'm not picking on Riddell. Riddell is a phenomenal striker, obviously done amazing things, but he tends to tighten up when he fights, right? It's like he bites down and he just like gets tight and just throws. But you could see that it impedes your ability to be fast and to be powerful. Whereas, Jamal Hill, he allows it, he accepts it, he's super loose, and that speed and that sharpness comes off, man. And it's just so evident. He is totally at peace with himself when he starts that fight. He's relaxed, and man, he strikes like a cobra. It's so pretty when you see him put together those combinations, and man, you're like, this guy's different. He hits different. He moves a little different. And if you're not ready for it, man, you are in big trouble. Jimmy Crute is a good fighter, dude. I thought Jimmy was going to try to take him down. I go, Jimmy, what are you doing striking with the guy? You know what I mean? He was trying to. He couldn't get there because Jamal's movement, his feints, the way he sets things up, man, he's fun to watch. And it's great to see him come back from that last fight against Paul Craig, too, where like his elbow obviously got messed up. And he's got a lot of potential, man. I'm excited to see what else he's got in store.
Yeah, it's interesting listening to what you said about Jimmy Crute sometimes sort of getting in the firefight, especially early. But, despite some of the things that Crute said publicly, his intention was to very much take Jamal Hill down and try to rip his arm off. And Crute, ever the good sportsman, was like, what the fuck was that, man? I love Jimmy Crute. He's only 25 years old. I think at times in the past he has wanted to expedite things, and now this on the back end of the foot drop is going to force him to sort of reset and maybe have a little bit of a longer career, candidly, than he was hoping. I think in a perfect world, if he has these visualizations, Jimmy Crute would have liked to have been UFC champion by 28 and been out by 32, and probably going to have to be in the game a little bit longer now after this loss. But I love Jimmy Crute. I'm bullish on his future. But yeah, man, sweet dreams, sometimes doesn't take much when you're calling these knockouts, right? Sweet fucking dreams. I wish I could say
Yeah.
sweet fucking dreams. So all right. So Jamal Hill will move up in the rankings, and this is a big test for him to pass. And again, in a light heavyweight division that really is wide open and more wide open, I think, than some other divisions. Maybe Jamal Hill finds himself in a UFC main event type situation. Maybe an Anthony Smith fight just off the top of my head makes some sense. But he called out, I think he mentioned the name Johnny Walker and also Paulo Costa, which as a main event, if Costa's moving up, makes all the sense in the world.
I love that. Yeah.
All right. I'm really trying to not shortchange this entire fight card. And by the way, Cody did write in our chat room, Jamal Hill likes to fight. And that's a good way to put it. Like, likes to fight. And I would imagine he'd be a guy that with 30,000 people screaming his name would even be better. So very exciting to think about the future.
The dude watched his arm. The dude watched his arm dislocated. He was still like, let's go. I gotta keep on fighting here. Yeah.
Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's your guy. All right. Clay Guida. So hopefully this will dovetail nicely into the Ray Longo minute today. And Cody, you can just pop that motherfucker on right when he gets in here. Clay Guida over Leonardo Santos by rear naked choke. And, sometimes we make too much of an MMA submission of a 7-time world champion Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt because Anthony Fluffy Hernandez has some great chokes. But when he submits Adolfo Vieira, it's the byproduct of a mixed martial arts fight that has played out before that submission. So it's incredible for Clay that this was not a knockout or a decision, and he can always lay claim to having submitted Leo Santos. And that's the way I called it. And that's all well and good. But this is a submission due to cardio abandonment, right? I mean, not due to a rear naked choke. Let's be honest. No, there's a lot to get to. I shouldn't have put it that way, I guess. But what are your thoughts on Guida's unbelievable rally to beat Leo Santos?
John, you are on point today, my friend. Always on point. But today, my goodness. Yes, I couldn't agree more. The submission happened when Leo Santos wasn't able to finish Clay Guida in round 1. That's when it happened. It was him mentally shutting down and going, what the hell do I need to do to beat this caveman? I don't think I got it. I don't think I got it in me to try to do that again in round 2. I don't think I have it in me to do that again in round 3. I think I spent it all in round 1, and I got this madman in front of me who keeps moving very unorthodox fashion, who's trying to hit me, who's trying to hurt me, who's taking this fight to me, and I'm tired. My lungs are burning out. That's when he lost, and that's when he got submitted, and that's what Clay Guida has in his arsenal. It's that heart. It's that thing you don't see. That's the most powerful and toughest thing about him. Is he the most skillful fighter in the world? No, but he's not going to quit, and he's not going to go away. You're going to have to take him out on a stretcher. That's it. That's the only way Clay Guida goes away. And it's amazing that he's still doing it and fighting with that amount of heart and tenacity at 40 years old. Clay Guida is a damn stud, man. Like, everyone's got a certain amount of fight in him. Clay Guida, I mean, just to see what he's done and the way that he's fought since his very first fight, like when he was fighting at Strikeforce and when he first got in the UFC, he's still fighting in that same manner.
Yeah.
To have that amount of fight is just unbelievable. Clay Guida is a damn legend, dude. Unbelievable.
This was his 32nd UFC appearance, his 55th professional MMA fight overall. He turns 40 on Wednesday. Happy birthday, Clay. I'm going to go on his boat, Gills and Thrills, with my kids down here in Florida at some point. But it is remarkable. And if you were to say to me over under 39 and a half career appearances in the UFC for Clay Guida, I would take the over right now. I actually think he will have 8 more fights in the UFC, right? Built to last was a line that sort of stuck with me that he said with us in our fighter meeting. As far as the stoppage is concerned, you sort of led the dance here with some Leonardo Santos inner monologue as if to say like, hey, Keith, man, what's it going to take, man? All right, so Keith Peterson is a friend of mine, and he's a friend of mine before he is any sort of colleague. I mean, we don't work together, but we share shuttles, Had that nice shuttle with the judges and referees again. I kind of stoked the fire this time. I turned around, I was like, why do the commentators have to get on a shuttle with the judges and referees? And one of the judges sort of deadpan right back at me. He's like, yeah, why do the judges have to be on a shuttle with the commentators, But that was our reality. So here's the thing, right? Like, Keith Peterson has a defense for why he stopped the Henry Cejudo Dominic Cruz fight. And I hate to inject Krause into this, Ken Flo, but Longo did it, right? He texted me that Dominic Cruz has got to be like, what is going on here? Because as I said on the call, in this instance, Keith Peterson gave Clay Guida every benefit of every doubt to stay in this fight. Keith has a technical explanation as to why he stopped the fight between Krause and Cejudo. I think a lot of it has to do with Cruz's arms being extended, maybe not intelligently defending, whatever it is, right? But I have said that I do think a referee's style can evolve, and certainly you want to learn from situations, especially ones that maybe are controversial, that splits the public. And it wasn't just Krause and Peterson that were split on that. It was the public. You know, a lot of people felt like it was a fine stoppage. A lot of people felt like Krause, especially in a title fight, deserved better. I do think this speaks to some evolution from Keith Peterson, you know, and maybe he's going totally the other way. I thought this fight could have been stopped. And I feel like this was a case of Keith Peterson in some way, shape, or form, knowing the athlete and making sure that Clay Guida really was too hurt to continue before he stopped the fight. That never happened. And the result was an epic rally in a fight that we'll be talking about for years to come.
Yeah, listen, I think body language matters, and you have to be able to speak that language. And I think that really is probably the most important thing for a referee to know and recognize, when it comes to deciding whether you're going to stop a fight or not, right? Everyone's body language, however, is a little bit different. And you're looking at things like limp arms or eyes, right, rolling to the back of your head, or, a fighter turning away or things like that. So with me in this fight, I think you also have to consider history, right? And what that fighter has done, how he fights, how he's come back before. Like, for anyone who hasn't seen the Clay Guida Diego Sanchez fight, check that out. You let me know how tough Clay Guida is. So
finish our show first, but then
right, exactly. Yeah, finish our first. Yeah. So, you're talking about one of the toughest dudes in Clay Guida. So yeah, it wouldn't have been the worst stoppage, but I did think Clay Guida was fine and able to continue.
Yeah.
And, listen, Keith Peterson, I still think he's one of the best referees in the world.
No doubt.
Does he make a mistake every once in a while? Yeah, the guy's human. But,
of course.
I thought it was the right call here. And I agree with you. I think evolution and learning from your mistakes is crucial, right, in any domain. And I think Keith Peterson is kind of putting it all together to allow that fight to play out. It allowed Clay Guida to come back. It was the right call, in my opinion. And we had a fantastic fight and comeback because of it.
I do agree with all of that, and I think Keith Peterson is a fantastic referee, one of the very best in the game. He has been elevated by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, right? Did the main event this weekend, and this was a guy that 3 or 4 years ago, the no-nonsense Keith Peterson was not refereeing fights in Nevada. So I think he's one of the best, and just a great family man. All 3 of his kids wrestle, and again, though, I think if you're Dominic Cruz, right, and you got that title fight, and you're watching this, it's got to be very difficult. And this is the second time we've had this type of conversation. Now, as far as the scoring of that first round, real quick, as we're waiting for Longo, again, I was hoping to bring Ray into this conversation because I think he has a lot of comedic value to add to it, the subject, but he's at least 5 minutes late at this point in time. But in terms of the scoring of this round, right? And Sean Sheehan is really the media guy that I lean on for this stuff. And I'm hoping to have him on later this month, actually, to sort of talk about some of these specific rounds and the scoring. But in an era in which the scoring has been tweaked a couple times and we're trying to be more liberal with 10-8 rounds, I said on broadcast that I probably would have given that a 10-8. And if I was a judge and I had scored that first round 10-8, for Leonardo Santos, that would have been one of my scorecards that was roundly criticized by the masses. And as a judge, you got to be okay with that, right? Sure. I guess for me, because Santos came so close to finishing Clay Guida, that the resultant minute at the end of the round in which Clay had top position and was fatiguing Santos, that wasn't enough to swing at the full point. I probably would have gone 10-8.5 if I was able to do so. But because I thought the fight could have and maybe should have been stopped at one point in time in my mind, I still would have written down 10-8. And again, maybe that would have been a mistake. Like, I'm not like going to my cremation chamber, like loving that scorecard. I'm just saying in the moment, that would have been a 10-8 for me, because he came close to finishing him. That's all. I just want to get that out there.
Yeah, no, I think that's valid. I think, Clay did kind of save that by coming right back in. And I think at that last minute of that round, I think, again, that was the deciding factor in the fight in a lot of ways, not necessarily for the round. You have an argument for 10-8, but I think that's what in Leo Santos' head, he's like, man, that was my opportunity. It's gone. And for Clay, he did maybe, save that round for him, amongst the other judges to make it a 10-9 as opposed to a 10-8, because if it had continued, or maybe if they circled, around and round for the remainder of that round, I think absolutely there's an argument for a 10-8.
Right. I think you're right. And when I think about in sort of those terms that he effectively broke Santos late in that round, that maybe that swings it enough back to a 10-9. And again, all three judges did have it 10-9 for Leo Santos.
Which is crazy, right? Because he lost the round, but won, right? It's like losing the battle, but winning the war. That's what actually did it. So that little effort at a minute, it let Leo Santos know it's like, no, man, I'm still here, and I'm gonna come at you.
And I thought the judges, especially if you're listening, had a great night, top to bottom. There he is, the fucking RPL machine, wearing the Venom gear on a Monday.
Yeah.
The pomade obviously has not come in because Ray Longo's hair is every which way. About 7 minutes tardy today, but we'll let you slide.
Well, as long as Krause is okay, I'm good. That's all right. That's I hope Krause is feeling good.
So what happened at 12:30 p.m.
Kenny.
Eastern? What's up with 7 minutes late though today? What's up with what happened today, my man?
We switched the times, and I got to adjust. It might take me a couple of weeks.
John, it's this older generation. They don't care about time.
No.
They're not like these new kids that really care about right. No.
You might be right, Kenny. It's hard to find something I actually give a shit about. You might be right about that.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Look at him.
He loves us. Look at him. He's here smiling.
Wait, hold on, Kenny. Is he in a posture of anger right now? I feel
this
threatened.
means I'm not having it. Yeah,
he's
not letting you in.
I mean, if I'm out on the street,
crossed,
that's a posture that could provoke a problem.
Certainly not wearing my Ray Longo minute gear today, are we, huh? I fucking 7 minutes late in a 90-minute big pay-per-view week. No, I'm just
great.
Hey, but real quick, if the 12:30 p.m. Eastern isn't a great slot for you moving forward, we could take that conversation off the air. But I want to maximize our time with you because we got Jimmy Krause coming up in about 21 minutes, and I certainly wouldn't want to keep a good man waiting,
Yeah, I'll keep it short. Don't worry about it.
No, please. So, I have so much I want to get into with you. I love when your name pops up in my phone on fight night. And, we sort of joke about it, right? Because every fight is different and every circumstance is different. But, Keith Peterson certainly had a long leash there for Mr. Clay Guida, huh?
Dude, all I could think about when that fight's going on is poor Krause. He's in there. He's got a voodoo doll. He's stabbing Peterson in the back with it. But let's face it. I mean,
Parliament light, right? With the fucking cigarette.
Oh yeah, he's burning them. Yeah. He's pouring beer on his head while he's burning them with cigarettes. Let me tell you. I mean, come on, man. You got to make a case. But Peterson might be the best ref out there at this point.
I agree.
I mean,
he's right there.
About it. He's listening. He's present. And even with Marab, he told me, look, as long as he was listening, he was doing what I was telling him. And I'm sure Clay did the same thing. And look what happened, man. Other refs could have jumped the gun. Two guys would have been denied victories that were absolutely phenomenal. And, it's all good. But when I see that, I just –
right.
Krause just doesn't listen, I guess. That's where I'm going with this. He doesn't listen.
Oh, my God.
Sometimes you can't be the guy talking. You have to listen.
So I truly want to maximize our time with you. So if you have anything for us on Jose Aldo, we spent the first 20 minutes of the show on this man. But what else can you say about Jose Aldo looking prime at 35?
I mean, look, this is phenomenal because, I always go back to, I think I was in the locker room once 10 years ago, and they said this guy has trouble making 45. Now he comes down to 35 at a later point in his career where that should be really hard. Look, never quit, never give up, believe in yourself, find the right people, develop another passion, a renewed passion. I mean, this guy is, what he's doing is pretty phenomenal for a variety of reasons. Right. And, man, he looked good. And Rob Font, look, we knew he had a chance of winning that fight. He came out, he had a great first round. He got caught at the end. But, Jose's shots had just more pop to him. And look, that's where experience really plays off, and I always talk about this before, and I'm not sure Rob Font wasn't totally, enamored with Jose Aldo. You had to know he had to look up to him. There's a difference when a guy like that, you might think about it, right, Kenny? But then you get in the ring and you go, what if this guy still has it? Then he starts leg kicking him on the advice of his corner, which was, I think, a total game changer. I think that was a huge game changer, something as simple as that. But, the Jose Aldo we love just burying people's legs kind of resurfaced a little bit. He got the couple of calf kicks off, and again, experience being with the same guy. I think him and
Pederneiras.
I mean, phenomenal. It's a great story all the way around. I mean, I really hope he gets what he wants, which is a championship, which I don't think is going to be easy. But just the fact that he called out Dillashaw, his head's in the right spot.
Yeah,
he's just a veteran that. It just seems like he's a great person too. He's just, everything he does is right, at this point. So
Ray, I agree. The clouds parted and the angels started singing when he was landing those leg kicks. You're like, that's the Jose Aldo.
That's the guy I want. Like, holy crap, he does have it. I don't know why he wasn't doing it, but it was a great fight. It really was. And, he knew how to space it out. Not that he stalled on the ground, but again, veteran moves all the way around. He knew how to take time off that he needed while still controlling him, and then getting back up. He had it. Still had a lot of pop left. Yeah, just great. I don't know what else to say unless you have something specific. But a beautiful performance.
That was perfect.
By a great guy who I think is going to go out of this sport loved by more people than when he was the champion.
I'm telling you. My eyes told me this was his toughest bantamweight cut when I sort of saw the after effects on Friday, and I do think he was fatigued in this fight. So again, as he continues to make this cut, I think it does bear watching. But again, if you're generally speaking eating cheeseburgers as a featherweight whenever you want, which was the case for Jose Aldo, and then you make wholesale lifestyle changes, he's not that surprised that he has had an easier time with some of these training camps and cuts to 35 than he did for 45 because of those changes. Like when Kemflo was making 55, like he was eating clean, like this isn't Kemflo fucking Ultimate Fighter season 1 circa 2005 in the middleweight division.
Circa 2005. He wasn't around in 2005, was he?
April of 05, Kemflo on season 1 of the Ultimate Fighter.
I mean, how old is this guy? I mean, this is crazy.
You're asking the president of Team Florian. He was born May 26, 1976 in Westwood, Massachusetts.
Oh, man.
Look at that.
Kenny, you could never leave this guy, no matter what.
I know.
I'm telling you.
Well, that's probably the conversation he has with Clark about the show at times. At the end of the year, Clark's like, wait a second. You gave Anik every Monday again, and that's what he paid me to do?
Wait, is Clark a fan of John's or no?
She is, of course.
She is a fan. Very good.
I'm just saying,
I don't know why, but she is.
It's like, hey, Anna, you better be lining my husband's pockets here. You take every Monday. And Kenny's like, you don't understand. Like, he's the president of my team. I can't. Like, he's a fan. He's like a fan of mine, Clark. I don't know what to tell you. All right. So when Rafael Fiziev lands the spinning wheel kick on Brad Riddell, you sort of see on the replay the way he kind of makes a shift in his foot to set up the right angle. And then obviously you have to be accurate with the spinning strike. You don't have to be perfect, right? And, he's not throwing it with every miles per hour within him. I just thought it was just a perfectly executed strike. And in a matchup like this that is so technical, that's rooted in familiarity, I just thought it was a brilliant classic strike to end a great, great fight.
Yeah, very, very technical, one zig when you should have zagged, which is what happened. And that's what happens. That fight I had very close. I don't know how they were going to score that fight, but I saw it as very, very close. Definitely, you could see both guys knew each other. There wasn't, they knew that the wrong move could end the fight. But anytime you're moving that way, even as a fighter, you have to know that it's either a left hook or a spin, right? You're going to try to cut the guy off. You go the other way, it's going to be a overhand right or something. So I think that was a mistake by Riddell, just going that way.
Right.
Still within striking distance, not having his hands up, which could have prevented a lot of stuff. But if you watch Riddell, he would move with his hands down, and he would automatically go into his guard when he was prepared to fight. So he got caught in between. And again, these are two high-level guys that I thought Riddell looked great in that fight. I thought they both looked great. So power to Fiziev. He's on a roll, and that was good.
All right, we got some other things that I want to get to. One thing I didn't get to that I just wanted to circle back to real quickly. I shared the pisser with your guy Aljamain Sterling Saturday night, and I said to him before the fight, I said, I guess if you're Team Sterling, you just want Rob Font and Jose Aldo to beat the shit out of each other, and that's exactly what happened. But as you think about this, I think you're probably thinking about this from a Sterling perspective. So what do you think about the unification bout with Jan, Aljo's relative health, and Jose Aldo in terms of factoring into all of that?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, Aljo's got to concentrate on Jan, which obviously is a really hard puzzle to solve at this point. But I think the funny part to me was when I looked at they had like the fights to make, and they had, they were throwing. Nobody's even mentioning Marab. I'd love to see Marab against Font as the next fight. You know what I mean? I
agree.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why they're bringing up other people. What is he ranked? Number 5 now?
Marab? It's got to be right there.
You know what I mean? So
that's very interesting.
Yeah, they didn't even mention the guy's name. I mean, which is crazy.
Did you hear me mention his name on live television?
100%. I did. I can't because I can't even pronounce it like you. So every time you say it, I
like, oh, that's his name, right?
Yeah, Walla Shavala. But anyway, but yeah, so Aljo's got to worry about one thing, and that's Peter Yan, and that's
right. Of course,
we're not getting past that. I don't think it matters what anybody does until he gets past that fight.
Yeah.
So I just thought, going the other way, like Marab needs a fight. I think those make for great fights, man.
I think so,
5-rounder. Give him a 5-rounder because he's not going to stop. And
I know those Marab training camps on the other side are always fun, right? Rooted in takedown defense and getting out of bad positions. And we've talked a lot on this podcast about how you prepare for somebody like Marab. Do you put yourself in the bad spot perpetually in training camp, or do you say, you know what, we're not going to win this fight if we let him get on our lead leg, so let's just not let him get there? I think that's a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, no matter who you're training, though, John, you should be trained in bad positions, right, Kenny? I mean, that should just be, one of the basic things, like was explained to me even with jiu-jitsu is that, all you work at the beginning, and I'm going back, but, just the mount escape the mount. You never want to be there, right? That's not where you want to be.
Right.
That's why they get you the hell out of there as quick as possible. You don't want to settle in while the guy's mounted on. You got to keep booking, man. So same thing. Those bad positions have to be, I don't care who you're fighting, because you never know when they're going to occur, and you better be used to them.
Cody, if you could text James Krause and back him up 5 minutes due to Longo's tardiness, we would really appreciate that, because I want to get to a couple of these other performances. Well, why else would I be backing him up, man? I could handle that off the air, but you were 7 minutes late, so I want to buy another 5 minutes out of you.
I really appreciate that.
So Chris Curtis and this whole MMA, everybody's so sensitive. Commentators, coaches, fighters, everybody's so sensitive.
Let me tell you some beautiful team. I'll take Bisbing and DC any day. Let them jaw at each other.
Yeah. All right. Chris Curtis, the action man, over Brendan Allen. Chris Curtis is 6-0 in 2021. This fight has a lot of different storylines, and Chris Curtis won the first round on all 3 judges' scorecards and is supremely well coached, and he executes well, and he's an underrated fighter and all of that. But Brendan Allen, to me, I'll lead with Ray, and I want to get Kenny's thoughts on this as well. Like, I feel like sometimes he approaches MMA like it's basketball, and that eventually he'll just be able to come back and win the game if things don't go super well. And in MMA, like, you can't fuck around, And I'm not saying he beats Chris Curtis 9 times out of 10. Maybe if they fight again, Chris Curtis is favored. I'm not trying to take anything away from Chris Curtis, but I hear the other fighters talk about Brendan Allen as this 5-tool player, and I think he's that. But, like, you can't just fuck around in this sport and get hit, or you're going to pay the ultimate price. And to me, I don't know what Henry Hooft has to say, but, like, you got to raise the guard, man. You got to be more disciplined, because these are setbacks that eventually are going to really get you off your championship trajectory, and you're never going to be able to get back up.
Yeah. Well, first, I'm not even going to address the fight, but let's address the mindset. Like, something's off, right? Like, something technically looks like he's got the physique, he's got the technique, but you don't really. Sometimes, like, you're watching a guy on TV and you don't know him. Only the people inside that training room know him, right? So I'm saying something could possibly be off, like, more mentally than physically. And you're right; those losses will start to affect your head, and you got to deal with all the people then busting your balls afterwards. Right. You should have did this. You should have did that. Look, it's torture for these guys. But I'd have to really get to know the guy and see what's going on. But I don't know.
I agree, John. Listen, I think that, fundamentally he was just keeping his head right in that center line, wasn't moving his head, kept dipping his head straight back, offering up a target, and got hit. And it's like, listen, man, if you're not learning from the first 5 times, then, it's going to happen. The knockout's going to be there no matter how good your chin is. And Curtis is a hungry fighter who hits hard as hell. And once he started finding his mark, similar to the Phil Hawes fight, he was going to go right back there until there was a change. And Brendan Allen was not adapting. And I don't know if it's a stubbornness thing. I don't know if it was some kind of other mental thing or just a big time fundamental flaw or a combination of all those things. But something needed to change because, how many shots can you take? Even if you're getting the win, how many shots do you want to take? If it's not necessary to take those shots, don't do it. I think that at the end of this, at the end of the day here, he didn't have to do that to win that fight. Like he could have, won from the outside and been more technical, slipped his head to the outside and won that fight, but he just didn't take that. It's almost like he's like, all right, we're just going to make it a war. And, not everybody can go out there and win every single war like that.
And I'm not suggesting that he would have been able to take Chris Curtis down if he was rooted in that game plan and that strategy throughout to submit him. But to me, like on paper, that's a grappling fight for Brendan Allen. Like you make that a grappling fight.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, look, the other thing too, Kenny, is they're all guys that they develop a way of fighting with their head up, right? Some guys get away with that. He looks a little stiff for that. Normally, you got to be more elusive and a lot of head movement. And so he doesn't look like that guy. So he might just be caught in between what he thinks he should be doing, what he really should be doing. But, I don't know. But I think that with everything, John, you got to really know the person because sometimes they look totally different. And you talk to a guy and you go, holy shit, he's out of his, he's out of his fucking mind. Like, how's this guy even fighting? So I don't know.
And I think it was Jack Slack who put it. Chris Curtis is one of the best stories and things going on in MMA right now. A guy who had $10 in his bank account and now has back-to-back wins over highly touted prospects. Phil Hawes and Brendan Allen are like number 16, number 17 in the world, Kenny, And
he wants in this weekend. I love it. Right. I mean, like he's like, anyone who wants to drop out, I'm in. Like I love the guys.
Nick Sick and Strickland obviously in his corner, and Strickland doing a great job in terms of some of the communication, especially. But attacking the body, right? And man, he didn't miss in terms of setting up the fight-ending shot.
Hey, talking about attacking the body, did you see my guy Justin Montalvo this week?
He's on my list.
Is he on the list?
Well, his dad, Cody, alerted us to the fact that his father is an AnikFlorianPodcast listener.
Hey,
well, listen, Ernie. Shout out to Ernie Montalvo. Listen, it's great to see a bond between a father and son like these two guys have. Ernie's just. There's nothing this guy wouldn't do for his kids. Nothing. Like he's just a great guy, and just shout out to Ernie. Definitely helped me out a lot this weekend, and just a great guy. And Justin, I thought first time in a bigger promotion, he did absolutely phenomenal. Maybe fell in love with the body shots a little too much, but that's what he loves, man. And he's good. He's really really good. Beautiful takedown defense. I thought it was a perfect fight, and he got 3 rounds in of letting his hands go against a very tough kid who he couldn't get rid of. You know what I mean? So,
Ray, congrats, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, good times for the Ray Longo fight team. There's no doubt about it, including the president of your fan club, Cody Merrow, our producer.
Wait. Let me clear this up. It's the Sarah Longo fight team. Stop with the Ray Longo fight team. Why are you doing that to that guy? Sarah Longo.
It's my lawyers. It's not John. It's my lawyers.
Cody, man, this has nothing to do with
I'm not trying to get sued.
Longo.
Yeah, holy crap.
Dude, come on, John.
Team Sarah Longo.
It's no shade to Sarah.
Let me just say, Matt's done a great job with this guy's jiu-jitsu. He's very hard to submit. Yeah.
What, like, then why? How come all of your athletes are buying this gear? Okay, so you can blame Cody. The Ray Longo fight team gear has nothing to do with me. Okay, Sarah Longo. I won't.
John, is it because he has a rival podcast? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Are we rivals now?
I know.
Are we rivals?
He's got a rival podcast.
I don't know. I don't know if they're. I don't know if we are. If we're rivals, if the listeners.
Oh, right. Gotcha.
I just don't know.
Oh, man. Matt Sarah's going to have a word with you, Johnny.
He didn't even say hi to me in New York. He just wanted to be upset about the Ray Longo fight team gear, which There's no roots or any direct. There's nothing. You could look at my cell phone. The origination had nothing to do with me. This guy can't even say hi to me in New York. He's coming up saying, "What are you wearing this?"
Hey, aren't you guys blunt buddies? I mean, you got there's no loyalty. There's no loyalty with blunt buddies.
I'm telling you,
there's a different loyalty there.
We'll have to. I hope we can bury the hatchet. I thought it was a little off-putting the way I was approached in New York City. When again, this had everything to do with Cody and nothing to do with me. But no, we're all happy for the team's success. And
thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else on this fight. Oh yeah. All right. Dude, William Knight is a specimen. I can't even call his fight.
But is there any way he's not on something? Can that possibly be?
He's clean.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, he's clean.
Unbelievable. A guy, he's jacked beyond jacked.
He's a weight room warrior. He's a hell of a light heavyweight. And even though maybe I thought this fight was Alonzo Menifield's and maybe I would have scored it that way, all three judges had it for William Knight. Power to him. Rep at East Hartford, Connecticut. But I'm just saying, like, I found myself, if you go back, like, I didn't call the fight. I'm stopping and staring as a play-by-play announcer. We stopped calling the fight because I can't take my eyes off William Knight. The dude's just a fucking gangster, man.
Nah. He's making the best of his time in the UFC. I can tell you that.
And he's got heart too. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't to cut weight.
He had some adversity. He did good. Yeah, 100%.
Kenny, I don't know if you have anything for us on that. That third round, obviously, Alonzo Menifield had some control in the clinch, but then William Knight had the bigger moments largely on the feet. I think
that's what
that was the difference.
Yeah, that was the difference. Yeah.
And I think as we all try to,
that was the difference. Every time he did something, it was like, holy crap, he's just flinging them all over the place. But
yeah,
I thought Menifield did do a good job, and I'd have to go back and look. I don't even know how I would have scored that fight, but I actually thought Menifield was going to get the nod.
If you are going to classify what Zoe was doing, Kenny, as octagon control, then I think you give the round to William Knight because octagon control is not even a secondary consideration. It's tertiary, which means that you don't go to it unless it's a tiebreaker situation. Maybe that's probably the way we put it on broadcast, that octagon control is kind of like a tiebreaker if you can't produce a winner.
Right.
All right, Raymond, you got anything else for us? Hey, go ahead.
I mean, a real shout out to Clay Guida. I mean, like, come on, man. The guy's going to turn 40.
Yeah.
This guy's been around forever, still energy off the charts. I mean, great seeing his parents. I got to meet them one time. Just salt of the earth people. They're just great people. This is a great story. Clay Guida. I think that's the story. The guy's 40. He's not stopping. I don't know. It's just I was so happy for the guy winning because, I mean, choking out an 8-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion. That's crazy.
Yeah. Unbelievable. All right. Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira, UFC lightweight championship this weekend. Do you have a prediction for our listeners?
I'm going with Dustin Poirier.
Okay. All right. It's amazing. I will find people who are picking Charles before the end of the week.
Wow. Nobody's picking Charles?
Well, I think it's closer to a pick 'em. We'll see what Ken Flo and James Krause and Joe Osborne have to say later today. I thought it would be closer to a pick 'em. Dustin is in the -170 range or so, and it seems like most people that I talk to, fighters, coaches, are picking Dustin. So we'll see.
I mean, look, Dustin has fought some unbelievable competition. He's on a roll. Oliveira has broken and go back to the Felder fight. I think it's going to be similar to that, where he just gets broken down by a big, strong guy. And that's the way I'm seeing it.
All right, my man. Great to see you.
Oh,
it's all love.
You guys don't even know what you did for my Monday morning. No idea.
Yeah.
Fucking ruined it completely. No, I'm only kidding. Great times. John, what's going on with you?
Nothing, man. It's all good things. It's all good things, I'll take it up with Maddie.
That posturing where you fold your arms like, hey, motherfucker.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Right.
You looking at me? You looking at me?
Say, I've given my haters a lot of ammunition today, right? They just want to punch this supposed not tough guy like right in the teeth. Come get some then.
That's right. He doesn't know what you got backing up.
Ken Flo's even probably going to turn on me by the end of the show. Hey, we got to go. We love you, though. Hey,
all right, take it easy, guys.
We'll see you next Monday.
Right. Take care.
The Ray Longo Minute every week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. And as you just heard, the long-awaited battle between Charles Oliveira and Dustin Poirier is on and popping this Saturday at UFC 269. One guarantee for you. is that fists will fly, and that's great because new DraftKings Sportsbook customers can bet just $1 and win $100 in free bets if either fighter lands a singular punch. That's all it takes. One jab, cross, hook, uppercut, haymaker, or hammer fist. The lightweight title bout scheduled for 5 rounds. Can you imagine if this fight ended with like a Charles Oliveira flying armbar without a punch being landed on either side? There's no way. So you bet just $1 on this no-brainer and win $100 in free bets. DraftKings, safe, secure, and reliable. Of that, I can assure you. And best of all, you can deposit and withdraw 24/7, 365 whenever you want. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app to your phone or device right now. Use promo code ANIK. Throw just $1 down on the UFC 269 main event and win $100 in free bets if Oliveira or Poirier land a punch. That's code ANIK, A-N-I-K, this Saturday at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC. Must be 21 or older. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, 8 picks to make for UFC 269. Let us get to the main event challenge.
It's the main event challenge. Anik.
The time is most definitely now.
Florian.
I finish fights. I'm gonna do everything possible to win.
The main event challenge. The Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
All right, I'm back by popular demand. I feel less handsome every time this guy enters the room. At the James Krause on social media, UFC veteran and my 2020 Coach of the Year, James Krause. What's good, man? How was your weekend?
Well, it depends on from what perspective you're looking at. From a betting perspective, not very good.
Yeah.
Not very good.
Are you
no, we're good.
You wheels up to Vegas with Derek Minner in a few days or what?
You got it. On Wednesday, I'll be there. That's a fun one. That's a really interesting one, man. Like, I'll tell you what, coaching against a guy like Ryan Hall, like, everything that I teach, you have to like unwind with a guy like Ryan Hall, because I'm very big on like half guard and throwing one hook in on the back. But like with a guy like a good leg locker like Ryan Hall, you can't do any single leg isolation at all, ever. Right. So like it's been interesting. It's been really fun for me to coach against, no takedowns. And I shouldn't say no takedowns, but like selective takedowns on how you're doing that, but like 0 single leg isolation, which is completely against everything that I teach in grappling for MMA.
Wow, that's fascinating. I'm glad that you got that out there to our listenership. Too bad Ken Flo's not going to be in the Ryan Hall corner. You guys would be coaching against each other, but fascinating matchup nonetheless. And I believe your guy Derek Minner is the favorite right now. Is that true? Do you know the better leg? He's the dog?
He's plus 200, I think.
Is he really?
Oh, wow.
Very interesting. That is not a lean. I just I had that flip-flopped, I think. All right, last week Ken Flo led the way 2-3 on his picks. Krause goes 1-4. Both of Ken Flo's hits were underdogs, though. Jose
Man, I was
Aldo
10 seconds away, bro. Get out of here. I was 10 seconds away from over on that.
Well, I know.
That's
Ken
crazy.
Flo 2-3, but his underdogs were winners, Jose Aldo and Clay Guida. So if you did trail Ken Flo $100 on all of his plays, you were in the black plus $15, even with a sub 500 record. Just wanted to point that out. 8 picks today, guys. So we'll try to be somewhat. Go ahead,
John. I like that. Like, I would be curious to see. So for 2022, adding up both James and I's picks, all that stuff, assuming everything, and seeing what the cumulative effort is at the end of the year, like monetarily, would be really interesting. I don't think we've ever done it before, but I like the way you're doing it now. Does that make sense?
No, and I think we're trying to figure out a scoring system for next year. Yeah. The tricky thing is
that's got to be the way, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's got to be the way.
The tricky thing is that, so if you guys pick Brendan Allen and he's minus 320, right? So if you're putting $100 on Brendan Allen, you're only winning $33. You know what I mean? So it just has to, I just have to figure out how I want to handle the math, because both of you guys picked Brendan Allen, I believe. That's minus $320 if you're trying to win $100, right? So I just have to navigate the math, but I do think that's the way to go. All right. First fight for us, this is a prelim at heavyweight. Largely, we're picking it because it's a pick'em, and it piques my interest. Minus 110 on both sides right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. Tai Tuivasa and Augusto Sakai. So, Tuivasa, James, would have been easy for him to kind of pack it in with 3 straight losses, but he did some work, particularly when it comes to the wrestling. Now he's won 3 in a row. Your thoughts on him here against Sakai?
Gosh, dang, man. This is a really tough one, because I feel like Sakai is extremely underrated at heavyweight, and he is durable enough to take some of Ty's punches. his volume is a little like my gripe with Tuivasa is his volume. That's my complaint with him. His volume is not high enough, and he always looks for that one. My problem is man, that one's a hammer. You know what? I'm gonna lean Sakai here.
Yeah, it is a hard fight to pick, right? I think Sakai to some people is the lesser known quantity, right? Started his UFC career 4-0 and then got a couple of back-to-back UFC main events. He went 25 minutes or close to it with Alistair Overeem, I believe, before being finished, then stopped by Biggie Boy last June. What do you think, Ken Flo? Tuivasa and Sakai, pick him here.
Yeah, this and rightfully so. I think this is a close one to call. I'm going to go with Tuivasa. I think that his power is not to be underestimated. I think if he's able to get on the inside and hurt Sakai, he can get the finish. But it is tough, like James said. But both these guys, I think, kind of suffer from that lack of volume. But they are heavyweights. But let's go with Tuivasa.
See if Tuivasa goes leg kick heavy against Sakai early. Prelim at bantamweight, also a pick 'em right now. Number 8, Pedro Munoz, -110. 10th ranked Dominic Cruz is -110. Munoz, James, off a loss to Jose Aldo in August. Cruz has had 9 months or so since his win over Casey Kenny back in March. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, this is another really tough one. I want to lean. I want to lean Pedro Munoz, and I got to be honest with you guys. These two fights, I don't feel good about either one of them. So
yeah,
I would rather the play be like I get to pick which ones I get to pick. But since we're just going down the line, this is a little tougher. But I'm gonna lean Pedro Munoz here. I like the footwork of Cruz. I think he's great. I feel like everything's catching up to him a little bit. I think he's great still, but I do think the game is catching up to him a little bit. And I'm gonna lean Pedro Munoz here. I like Pedro. He's very smart, kicks well, big puncher. Good guillotine. He's got a lot of good stuff. It is a coin flip fight for me. I'm just telling you guys my gut. I don't feel good about either one of these picks, but I'm leaning Pedro Munoz on this one.
I had some of those same sentiments about Dominic Cruz in terms of some question marks going into the Casey Kenny fight. And full disclosure, he's one of my best friends in the world. But Kenny, this, like, I wasn't sure if his speed would still be there. And I think for his footwork, he needs to still have that quickness. And I felt like largely he did have it against Casey Kenny. I would also say to you, Kenny, style-wise, you got to think Cruzy like this matchup. Otherwise, a guy at this stage of his career, as thoughtful as he is, he probably wouldn't have taken it. What are your thoughts on Dominic Cruz against Pedro Munoz here, Kenny?
Listen, I think Pedro Munoz is a very dangerous guy. And Dominic is going to need an answer to those leg kicks as far as getting cut up as he tries to loop around and find his angles. So Dom has been around a long time. I think he's very self-aware, though, as far as, his capabilities, his vulnerabilities, and, one of the smartest fighters in the game. I still think that he has it. And I agree with both you guys that, hey, as you get older, you're not going to be as fast. And his footwork is a major part of his game. Has it diminished a little bit? Maybe. But I still think Dominic has enough. I still think he's crafty enough. I still think he's going to be able to confuse Munoz. Munoz, to be effective, needs guys right in front of him. And I don't think Dom is that guy. So if Dom can stay on that bike, stay moving, shoot and move, maybe hit some takedowns, maybe land some shots and keep moving, I think Dominic Cruz wins this fight. But this is a fascinating one to see if Dominic is losing a step or not. But I still think Dominic absolutely is one of the best bantamweights in the world.
Yeah, I think he's going to
literally changed my pick. As you guys were talking, I've literally in my head changed my pick 3 times.
All right.
I'm like, no,
well, hey,
no, he's got a point. And then I was like, no.
For the record, you always reserve the right to text Cody and change your selection up until fight time, and he will update the masses on social media. So, all right, moving on. Huge fight at featherweight, guys. Josh Emmett, -220, Dan Ige, +180. So Emmett back from the invasive knee surgery and the extended rehab that followed the Shane Burgos war and win, which came June of 2020. So, James, pretty remarkable given the severity of the knee injury. 17 months or so, Emmett is back in a high-profile spot. About a 2-1 favorite here against Dan Ige. Your thoughts?
I have bet against Ige too many times. too many times. And man, I don't know why either. I can't tell you why. And I've lost a lot of money on him, and then I got smart, and then I've won a lot of money on him. However, I do feel like Emmett is just a really, really difficult matchup for him, man. Emmett is he can wrestle. He's got power. He's got great boxing. I mean, this is another really difficult matchup because Ige is one of those guys that just doesn't go away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think Emmett's going to get tired, though. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. And he has the capability to knock anybody out. This one's really tough. I'm gonna lean Emmett. I'm gonna say Josh Emmett, but I don't feel good about this one either, man. I could see Ige.
Right.
Ige's one of those guys that sticks around and like he's like a Clay Guida kind of. You know what I mean? Which by the way.
I totally forgot. That's the honest answer. Okay. Right. I absolutely had every intention. I thought it was a brilliant analogy by you, and I couldn't work Chihuahua into the telecast, not because I didn't have windows, right? But yeah, I think maybe because the fight got so crazy. I don't know. It didn't even cross my goddamn. I know. It didn't cross my mind. I can't believe it didn't cross my mind. Like I would have had to have probably written Chihuahua down on my fighter card to make sure.
It wasn't a good enough comeback for you, John, for you to use that analogy. Okay. All right. Next time, bro.
Those Chihuahuas can really take fucking kicks right to the liver, though. I tell you. Ken Flo, we got to move. We got fucking 6 fights to go. Ken Flo, no. Real quick, a little background for you on Josh Emmett, right? Because he's won 3 in a row. He's 16-2 overall. He's 36 years old, number 7 in the world. I could see him getting fast-tracked to a title fight. I know Holloway and Volkanovski, and if you look at the top 5, there are other guys. But I could see him getting fast-tracked to a title fight because he's underappreciated. His power is next level. And if he wins 4 in a row and gets a finish here, he'd have the winning streak that I think would be worthy. Do you think he can get past Dan Ige?
I do. I'm going to go with Josh Emmett as well. I think his speed and his movement is going to be the difference here. Both these guys hit like a Mack truck and are capable of knocking out the other. But I do think Josh Emmett's speed and his variety of weapons, I think, is a little bit better. He's a little bit better of an athlete. I'm going with Emmett here.
Ige coming off a unanimous decision loss in a 5-round main event to the Korean Zombie on June 19th. And that brings us to the main card. Sean O'Malley, -320. Raulian Paiva, +250. So Paiva's got the red corner because he was actually the only ranked guy in this matchup at some point. But he wasn't ranked when I checked this morning. When he fought Kyler Phillips was number 14 in the world. Paiva took his ranking. Now he's no longer ranked. Nonetheless, despite being the underdog, Paiva gets the red corner against Sean O'Malley, who, James, is not ranked, but I do believe O'Malley to be one of the top 15 bantamweights in the world. How do you handicap this matchup for the Sugar Show against Raulian Paiva?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I'm going to take O'Malley, but, man, I would definitely sprinkle in Paiva or Paiva. I would sprinkle Paiva by finish. Just I don't see this fight going the distance. I really don't. Paiva's tough, man, but I do feel like stylistically O'Malley's a sharpshooter, man. I do think he's going to find him. But I like the under. I don't know what the over-under is, but I like does not go the distance in this fight. And if you want to get a little gangster, put someone on Paiva as well to not go the distance.
Ken Flo, Sean O'Malley, 14-1 overall, 6-1 in the UFC. Last win, of course, against the durable Chris Mutino. We mentioned Paiva over Kyler Phillips. What do you think about this one here as Paiva goes for the biggest win of his career?
This is interesting, man. Paiva is very tough, very skilled. Curious to see if he's able to present some problems for O'Malley, but O'Malley, very skilled, man, moves extremely well. I think that, if O'Malley is still hungry and, training like he is and improving like he is, I think this is O'Malley's fight. Can he win by finish? I don't know, but I do like O'Malley here.
I think both of these guys are underrated. The one thing I can guarantee to our audience based upon my interactions with Sean O'Malley, like you don't have to worry about the commitment. Like he wants to be great. He's a willing grappler. I'm excited to see his future, but obviously a big test for him and Raulian Paiva. All right. At flyweight, Cody Garbrandt making his UFC flyweight debut. He's -170 against Kai Kara-France, who is +150. First fight for both guys, obviously, is the scale, but particularly so for Cody Garbrandt on Friday. I'd imagine most people would at least want to see him on the scale before venturing a wager. Perhaps not. He's certainly a disciplined athlete, not a huge frame, James. What do you think about Garbrandt's flyweight debut?
I'm going to take Garbrandt here, but man, I just in this day and age, you just don't see a lot of people, especially that 35 to 25 jump. That seems to be like a kryptonite for some reason. You know, we've talked about that before, I think, and I haven't seen a lot of guys do that and look good. I am going to take Garbrandt here, though. I am going to take Garbrandt here. I feel like he's got his hand speed is incredible, the fastest in the division probably. I'm gonna lean Garbrandt. I don't think this fight goes the distance either.
Ken Flo, if I was going to cut from 35 to 25, I'd probably use EPO. I think that would probably be the best way to do it.
Is that legal?
What do you think
legal?
here?
I
don't think
an
so.
approved substance?
I don't think so. Cara France knocked out Rogerio Bontorin at UFC at 259 in March. What do you think, Ken Flo? You going with Garbrandt or the hyphen Kai Cara France?
Jeez, man. James brought up a lot of great points here. I think going down to 125 pounds for the first time and then performing against a tough guy in Kai Cara France is not an easy out for Cody Garbrandt at all. And I feel like this is quite possibly the most important fight of his life in a lot of ways, because where does he go from here? I think what makes Cody special is his power, his speed, and his footwork. And we have yet to see that combination where he put it all together like he did against Dominic Cruz. And that's concerning for me. I want to see that Cody Garbrandt again, and we haven't quite seen it. Against Kai Cara France, this guy moves a lot, and he's crafty, he's slick, he knows how to move about the octagon. This is going to be a fascinating fight. I think the difference here, of course, is Cody Garbrandt's power. If Cody catches him just right, I think he could, put Kai Cara France to sleep. Kai can hit well, but it's going to take more combination work for him to do that. This is tough. I'm going to go with Cody, but I would like to see how the weight cut goes. I'd like to see how the scale situation unfolds, to see how he looks, how he feels. But I'll stay with Cody here as well, but want to see how he looks.
All right, next up, guys, featured bout at welterweight. And the third pick'em of the day, Jeff Neal minus 110, Santiago Ponzinibbio minus 110 as well. James, what do you think? Big fight here at 70.
Man, I liked Jeff Neal a lot in this fight until I've seen the thing the other day. He got like a DUI or something.
Right.
I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing here? We're drunk 2 weeks before a fight. I don't quite understand that. And that what he does in his personal life is his own business. I'm not trying to knock him there, but like, what are we doing here, man? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's
right.
I don't know. I liked him a lot in that fight. I'm going to stay with him, I guess. But, man, like, I'm hoping that it was just a one-off. It was on Thanksgiving, so I'm hoping he just,
right.
Maybe yeah, and I don't know the whole story. I don't know if he was actually, like, hammered or, just blowing, like, whatever the alcohol a little bit over can be. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have to be drunk to blow over the legal limit or I don't know the story. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
I just don't like reading those headlines 2 weeks before a fight is all I'm saying.
Of course. No, I get it. And he is going to fight, right? I did talk to his head coach, Saif Saud, and it was sort of a one-off. And I think they all believe that the blood alcohol level is going to come in low enough that will make the weapons charge go away. Because I think maybe there's something that if the weapon is, if you're drinking, the weapon becomes illegal. I don't know. I mean, it is what it is, right? But I can understand why maybe it would give somebody pause to go bet on Jeff Neal. He's the last guy, Kenny, that I would expect to be getting a mugshot, candidly, But on the other side, you have Santiago Ponzinibbio, who had so much pressure on him going into the Miguel Baeza fight, right? It was an absolute war against Caramel Thunder, who is very highly thought of. And for Ponzinibbio, it came off of that vicious knockout loss to Li Jingliang. So back was up against the wall, came up large in a big way, got the bonus, and he has a good mentality, I think, having seen him this weekend going into the Jeff Neal fight. Flo, your thoughts?
Yeah, listen, I think for Jeff, I think he doesn't take as many risks as Ponzinibbio. And because of that, I think that's a good thing. Ponzinibbio, it's hard for him to not fight recklessly sometimes. And because of that, I like Jeff Neal's odds here. I think he's a guy who hits very hard. Ponzinibbio also, brings so much offense at times where he can overwhelm guys. Is Jeff Neal the guy to get overwhelmed? However, I don't think so. I think Jeff Neal finds a way to answer those flurries and that chaos and finds a way to get the win here. But fascinating fight. I'll go with Jeff, and I hope he sorts out what's going on outside the octagon.
All right, co-headliner, Amanda Nunes, -900. Juliana Pena, +600. I probably should have chased the props for you guys. We'll need the round and the method of victory and how you're going to attack this on the board. So first, bantamweight defense for Nunes since the Jermaine Durandamy win. That was December 2019. On the other side, Pena earned this championship opportunity with a submission of Sarah McMahon in January. That was at UFC 257 on Fight Island. What kind of chance, Jimmy Krause, are we giving Juliana Pena this weekend? Level with me.
Amanda's Amanda. I mean,
yeah,
she's the GOAT for a reason. I'm gonna go Amanda, third round TKO. I think I could see Juliana having some moments where maybe she gets like a takedown, you know what I mean, or puts her on the fence, stalls her out for a minute. Amanda's just so powerful. She's so aggressive. She doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I just think she's better everywhere I think she's a better grappler than Pena. I think she's obviously a better striker, better wrestler. I could see Pena stalling her out a little bit. I don't see it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like often we get in these times with these huge high profile fights where it's like they seem invincible. I don't think Amanda's invincible. I just think she's a really, really difficult matchup for Pena.
Yeah, that's interesting because when I talk to coaches, Kenny, about their athletes when they're like a -900 or -1,000 favorite, they always just come back and talk about the fight, however humbly, right? But with Amanda, it's just interesting because I just talked to Pahumpa. It's like, oh, what do you think about Amanda? And they just almost respond the way James did. It's like they're just as blown away being in that training room. And I think when you're a part of a Nunes training camp, it's hard to imagine her ever losing to another woman in almost any weight class. What are your thoughts on Nunes taking on someone in Pena who, if nothing else, is one of the meanest women in MMA?
It's kind of like taking on the United States military. You're like, well, can we get their Navy? Do we have a better Navy than them? No, we don't know. Well, do we have more money than the military? No, we don't have it there. All right, well, what about our Army? Nope. Marines? No. Air Force? Nah.
Yeah.
Shoot. Well, what do? We just try to survive for as long as possible. It's like, yeah, Amanda Nunes, she's got so many weapons. She's got so many tools. And, man, when she throws them, people get hurt and get hurt badly. And I think the fact that this fight, this is at 35, right? I think that you got to imagine she's going to have to be working hard to get down to that weight and all that stuff. She's had a nice break to kind of work on those skills and get that weight down and all that stuff. Amanda's a problem, and the only one who beats Amanda is Amanda. And it's no disrespect to Pena or anybody else in that division. It's just she's just that damn good. Now, Pena's got some good grappling skills. She's feisty. She's tough. She gets you on the ground. She can beat you up with some good ground and pound. But can she weather that storm early? Can she get those takedowns early to try to disrupt Amanda Nunes? I don't think so. And I think Nunes comes out hot. Hurts Pena early and gets the win in the first round. I'll go with first round TKO here by Nunes.
And wouldn't that be something? All right. Main event for the undisputed UFC lightweight championship. Deep breaths, folks. Dustin Poirier -165. Charles Oliveira +145. Don't think you guys need any setup for me really on this one. It's the first undisputed title defense for Oliveira. Poirier trying to complete his mission on the other side, become the undisputed UFC champion, and likely end 2021 as the fighter of the year. Who wins the main event, James Krause, and ultimately how do they get it done?
Guys, especially in this sport, there is great value in just not going away. And I think Dustin Poirier has made a career off of not going away. And I think Oliveira is incredible, extremely dangerous. And his striking has improved drastically. His grappling is phenomenal, maybe the best in the division. If this fight hits the ground, Poirier's got some big problems. However, if you are 19 and a half minutes into this fight, you have a cut over your eye, you're tired, your eyes half swollen shut, there's not many people on the planet Earth that I would want next to me other than Dustin Poirier. This dude is the definition of a winner. He finds ways to win fights. And I don't even know. I think the way I look at this is Oliveira's for sure a better striker. Or I'm sorry, for sure a better grappler. He's probably just as good of a wrestler, if not better. Their striking's technically pretty close. Danger factor goes to Oliveira. But I'm telling you, man, there is value in just not going away. And Poirier's a guy that I want on my side if the times are getting tough and there's blood everywhere. We're tired. I've seen Oliveira go away in the past, and I've seen Poirier be in spots to where it would be okay to go away and nobody would say otherwise. And he chooses not to. Every time. No hesitation. Right. None. Zero. Matter of fact, if this is going away, he goes here. Right? Like, yes, I'm going to it. And, I can't bet against a guy like that. He's a winner, man. He finds ways to win. I think he's going to find a way to win on Saturday.
So right now on DraftKings Sportsbook, over 1.5 rounds, -175, under 1.5 is +145. How do you see this fight ending, James, if you had to pick?
TKO, over 1.5.
All right. Ken Flo, main event, man. James laid it out for you. How do you see it going down?
He laid it out beautifully. I think that Oliveira has a tremendous amount of skill. You look at his improvements over the years, it's been amazing to watch and just to see him become champion at 155 pounds. But I think James nailed it. I think that, Dustin Poirier is a guy that has kind of proven over the last few fights to be somewhat unkillable. Can he get submitted? Do I see that going down that way? Yeah, that could definitely happen. But at this stage of the game, I don't think that's going to happen. I think Dustin Poirier is too tough. And if we've seen Oliveira with a weakness, now we haven't seen that in a little while, but it's the fact that he tends to fade if the fight gets crazy, if it gets chaotic, if it becomes down to whose heart is bigger, you can get Oliveira out of there. And if Dustin Poirier does that, like he's done with Conor, like he's done in previous fights, even against guys who have shown that, like Justin Gaethje and Alvarez and Hooker. Hooker. I mean, it's like, if you have durability, if you prove yourself to be unkillable, well, that's a superpower. And Dustin Poirier has shown that as of late. It eventually goes away over time, but I don't think that's wearing on Dustin Poirier just yet. I still think he's hungry. This is one of the biggest opportunities again in his life. It's a tremendous matchup for him. I think he knows that this is very achievable. And I think he's trained his ass off despite, a busier schedule, having those 5-round fights, as we mentioned last week. I still think he has enough to go out there and get it done against Oliveira. I think he gets it done in round 3, TKO.
Round 3 TKO for Dustin Poirier is Ken Flo's main event selection. If you want more from James Krause, and why would you fucking not? It's at the James Krause on social media. I look forward to shaking your hand, brother, at the weigh-in on Friday, as you'll be there with Derek Minner, and I wish you all the best in that fight. Appreciate your contributions as always, my man.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate y'all.
There he is, James Krause, with us for the main event challenge every week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. Our final order of business is the Pick to Click. It's presented by OddsShark.com, the most reliable source for sports betting information. With the latest odds, insight, and analysis on everything UFC, I would strongly encourage you to check out OddsShark.com/UFC to get all you need to know before placing your bets on UFC 269 this weekend. I mentioned that OddsShark Fight Center, great resource for fans. I know the media uses it as well. All the matchup information presented in a nice, logical way. OddsShark also giving you a compilation of all the odds from various sports books as well, so you can compare prices. And they're experts, not only insightful like our kid Joey Osborne, but they're invested in mixed martial arts. They have been capping MMA for a long time. So please check it out in advance of UFC 269. Every click supports the Anik and Florian podcast. OddsShark.com/UFC. Don't forget the second S. All right, let us get to the Pick to Click.
Time now for the Pick to Click. The Pick to Click.
All I have to do is bet on the winner, and I'll never lose.
The Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
Hey, me on social media at JTFOZ and on Instagram. I guess I should say the Twitter's JTFOZ. The Instagram is Paper Chaser Joe. And I've been known to click on his videos more than once for their comedic value. It's good to see you, man. What's going on?
Guys, I'm so basking in the glow of correctly picking Jose Aldo as an underdog there over the weekend. And a lot of people were against me on that one, but I see Aldo as a guy who's just chronically undervalued. And I think it has to do with when Aldo loses, he tends to lose pretty bad. Like he tends to get beat up and people judge him too harshly on that. But I was just looking at his odds last week against some of these guys. You know, he closed as an underdog versus Jeremy Stevens. Like, just chronically undervalued this guy. So I was very, very happy with that result on Saturday. That's interesting that he closes a dog against Jeremy Stevens. I'm trying to think about what Stevens did leading up to that fight. And we all remember the body shot that crippled Stevens. But yeah, man, like when people were reaching out to me, you know, I know the New England cartel pretty intimately. And I'm just looking at Jose Aldo plus 130. Obviously, Ken Flo was on that side. Good on you. So, all right, as I understand it, you have 3 different ways you're going for the fight card this weekend. Let's begin where we just sort of came off of, the Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira main event. So Dustin in most spots right now is in the minus 165, minus 170 range. I probably talked to a dozen fighters / coaches, and all 12 of them are picking Dustin Poirier. I think this fight is a little closer than minus 165, but obviously my brethren do not agree. So how do you handicap the main event, and will you have a play? Yeah, so this thing has the potential to be an absolute firefight, right? Like a real fast-paced fight with a lot of action. And when you have a fight like this, I'm going to take the guy who's clearly more durable and the guy who clearly deals better with adversity. So you know where I'm going with this. I'm taking Dustin Poirier and siding with the 12 people you spoke to in this one, right? So we've seen it so many times in Poirier's career where he's lost exchanges, he's lost rounds, he's gotten beaten up in fights, but has come back to win those fights. I don't think we have too many examples of that for Charles Oliveira, who got bailed out in his most recent fight versus Michael Chandler. We discussed this last time I was on here, right? So, and we've also looked at the body of work for each of these guys. Poirier has faced a much, much, much higher level of competition. It is not even close. Like, you can't really knock Charles's win streak. If you put a win streak together at this level of the sport, that's very impressive. But those names do not come close to the list that Poirier has fought over his last 8 fights, where he is 7-1 with 6 finishes in those fights. You know, finished McGregor twice, Dr. Stoppage, sure, Dan Hooker, Max Holloway, Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje, Anthony Pettis finishes in 6 of those 7 fights. So I like him to win. I have no problem just betting them straight up at the number. I think it's around minus 165, but take them to win inside the distance, plus 100, even money. Pretty good value on that. Yeah, I don't think it's going 5 rounds for sure. I do maybe lean towards over a round and a half or so, but I wouldn't be surprised at all to see us get a finish inside the distance. All right, and you have a couple other plays. Are you going to attack this Amanda Nunes co-main or not? Yeah, what is she? Minus 700, minus better stop that price there, Joel. Yeah. So as I often say, I don't come on the podcast and give out picks for massive favorites like this. There's no value in that. There's not a lot of people interested in making those type of bets, right? Minus 900 on climbing. I'm seeing Cody just put in the chat there. Wow. So yeah, when Amanda Nunes eventually does lose, I think it's either going to be as a result of father time or perhaps an elite wrestler who's able to hold her down for 25 minutes. I don't think that person's on the UFC roster right now. So I'm going to take her to win, but we got to go into the prop markets here. And you take a look at Amanda's fight log here, and she's a bit all or nothing in terms of the length of her fights. And what I mean by that is she's either going to finish you early in the first round, or the fight's going to go to a decision or go into the 5th round. You take a look at her 7 fights since 2017. She finished 3 of them in the first round, and the other 4 either went to decision or were finished in the 5th round. So where I'm going with this is the over under 1.5 rounds. I like the over at minus 125. I do think Juliana Pena has the ability to stretch this out at least until the round and a half mark here. So, you know, what's her strategy coming into this fight? I think she would be very, very silly to stand there and try to strike with Amanda, at least early on in the fight when she's at her most freshness. So I think she's going to be aggressive with her takedowns. I think she's going to try to make it dirty, go for some tie-ups, push up against the cage, and I think that's going to be able to chew the clock. Now, Juliana has been finished before, never early, before the round and a half mark, though. So I think it's a pretty good number, too, minus 125 to go over a round and a half.
All right, very interesting handicap on that. And I have one NFL thing for you, but before I get to it, any other bet of note for you at UFC 269?
Yeah, I like Augusto Sakai here, guys, at minus 110. I think it's a pretty fair number on him. I think he's being judged too harshly. You know, he's coming off of he got finished in his last 2 fights against guys who are near the top of the food chain, and Alistair Overeem and Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Now, we hung around in that Overeem fight. You know, he had some decent moments in that one and actually outlanded him in the fight, but he did get finished later on in the fight. Then against Rozenstruik, he didn't look good at all. He got his ass kicked. He got finished, right? But the UFC obviously saw enough in this guy to put him in those spots, to put him in those 2 main event spots, try to give him a little bit of a push. It didn't work out. But now, as a result of that, he's dropping down maybe a level or 2 to take on a guy who came very, very close to losing to Greg Hardy here, guys. So just overall, I think Tuivasa is the better mixed martial artist. I do think he has more paths to victory. So I will take Sakai here to take this one.
All right. And last thing, in terms of the NFL, I know you like the Cleveland Browns at the beginning of the year. There have been a lot of circumstances that have resulted in them not having the year that maybe you forecasted. But right now, as we start December, so to speak, if you had to pick one NFL team to win the Super Bowl, independent of price, I'm not looking for value on the board. Like, I see the NFC as maybe having more possible entries who could win it all. But who do you think is the best team in the NFL right now? And if I gave you $1,000 American dollars or Canadian dollars or whatever dollars to bet, who do you think is the best team in the NFL? Who do you think hoists Lombardi?
I want some Bitcoin, right, Kenny?
Ha!
Absolutely. So,
Absolutely.
I would probably have to say the Green Bay Packers, you know, if you're just putting me on the spot like this. And the reason is they're different this season because their defense is really good. And that kind of came out of nowhere. No one expected them to be this good defensively. If they are able to lock up that number 1 seed, it would be hard to envision seeing them lose 2 NFC championship games in back-to-back seasons at home. Right. It is a hard place to go in and win. It is a true home field advantage where weather often comes into play playing there in January. So I would go with Green Bay. You know, Aaron Rodgers, his last dance in Green Bay before he goes on to another team. So, yeah, I would go with Green Bay just because we know what they can do offensively, and the defense is pretty damn good this season. I
like that. How about the Boston College Eagle, A.J. Dillon, chewing things up on the ground? Yeah, good team. All right. At JTFOZ on Twitter. On Instagram, he is at Paper Chaser Joe. It's good to see you, my friend. Happy New Year, I guess. This is the final pay-per-view of the year. You know what? We'll get you on, though, later in the month, depending on your schedule. But it's good to see you, man. Hope you keep hitting them straight, and we will talk to you soon.
Awesome, guys. Good luck to you. Good luck to all the listeners out there.
Thanks,
There
Joe.
he is. OddsShark.com's Joe Osborne. A lot of good content from him on the daily at OddsShark.com. All right, before we get on out of here, I just want to share some quotes on Khamzat Chimaev from Dana White. So he was on the Jim Rome show, and we do wish the UFC president a return to health here soon. But here is the quote that I just wanted to read to you on Khamzat, and then we'll get you out of here. So hopefully this week we will have an opponent for him. Nobody wants to fight this guy. Everybody wants to get out on social media and say this and say that, blah, blah, blah. But when it really comes down to it, nobody's trying to fight Khamzat Chimaev, okay? That line, nobody's trying to fight Khamzat Chimaev. So Neil Magny is trying to fight Khamzat Chimaev, and Gunnar Nelson is trying to fight Khamzat. Now, I don't know if either one of those guys is of the ilk that would get them that fight. Maybe Magny in the top 15 right now would get that fight. I really don't know. But certainly those guys seemingly have put themselves out there and want the fight under the terms of their current contract. It's one thing to want the fight like that. It's another thing to say, yeah, I'll fight him for a raise of $350,000, right? So I think independent of price, those guys would take the fight. Nate Diaz has said that Khamzat is a rookie, right? And so he wouldn't want to fight him. Now, Dana White's response to that was there are guys with more experience, he told TMZ, and some guys with some less experience. Khamzat Chimaev is one of those guys that's willing to fight anybody in multiple weight classes on short notice. He's doing wrestling matchups. If it's a fight, he's in and he wants to fight you. And that's the reality. People can spin Khamzat however they want to, and I don't blame them. And, you know, he went on to say Khamzat's one of the baddest dudes I've ever come across. He's literally willing to fight anyone, doesn't care the time frame or the weight class or any of that stuff. One of the baddest dudes I've ever come across, right? And so I just agree with a lot of Dana's sentiments. It has nothing to do with promotional hyperbole or the UFC cutting my paycheck or me trying to align with Dana or getting a direct order from them. He's one of the baddest dudes that we have ever seen. And it seems to me, at least right now, that the fights that make the most sense, Luke A. Burns, for one reason or another, aren't materializing. So seems like in a few days, we're going to have some answers. But I just want to get those quotes from Dana out there, because I think at the end of the day, there aren't a lot of guys who really are trying right now to fight Khamzat at 170 pounds.
No, they're not. I mean, listen, you look at Khamzat's skills and what he's done so far. You know, I think a lot of people are very fearful of that fight and that matchup. And I think it becomes even more difficult because he only has had a few fights in the UFC. And, you know, guys are seeing way too much risk. I mean, they go out there and they fight a guy who's only fought a few times in the UFC and they get handled easily. They look bad. And I think they're fearful of that outcome. Right.
Yeah. And again, it's like these guys are not like afraid of the fight. They're afraid of what the result might do to their career trajectory.
Yes.
You know, and I wouldn't blame them. And again, you know, maybe it will be that a higher profile guy will get a new contract in order to fight him. And, you know, maybe it'll be Chimaev and Magny at a main event. Who knows? But hopefully it's something that happens soon, because I know the masses are excited about the future. All right. Thank you all for indulging us over the last 90 minutes or so. If you want merchandise or anything more on the show, AnikFlorianPodcast.com. We have extended our holiday code FAM15 for 15% off of your entire order. Also, don't forget Flow2. Ken Flow's YouTube channel is up and running. One More Sleep merchandise at millions.co. Don't forget UFC 269 is coming up this weekend. And for all of you who are in our intern sweepstakes, we will be in touch. But basically, you're going to be creating a 30-second video through a Google form or something, and we're going to repurpose that video and audio on the podcast. You get 30 seconds to tell us your name, your age, and why you believe you should be the 2022 intern for the Anik and Florian podcast. So details to come. If you have not already submitted your application, sorry, but we have closed the bracket at this point in time, and we will reach out to those individuals over the next week or so. Thank you all for listening, for watching. Tell your friends to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Our producer is Cody Merrill. Thanks to our guests, James Krause, Ray Longo, Joe Osborne. For the man, Ken Flo, I'm just Jon Anik. We'll talk to you next Monday. Thanks for watching. Listen, yo, later.